He built a career on making people dance all night long. But on one Minnesota stage, 77-year-old Lionel Richie sat down mid-song and told the crowd he felt dizzy and strange. Paramedics were called. A hospital visit followed. Then silence. 10 days later, he finally spoke. So what really happened backstage that night? And did Lionel Richie just confirm the one thing fans were quietly whispering about? It was supposed to be a celebration. On June 24th, Richie kicked off his Sing a Song All Night Long tour alongside Earth, Wind and Fire at the Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota. Just hours before showtime, he posted on Instagram, buzzing with excitement, sharing backstage photos that radiated nothing but joy. For about an hour, the show went exactly as planned. Richie worked the stage. The crowd sang along. Then came Dancing on the Ceiling. If you know the song, you know it's not a slow number. It's high energy. It's a moment where Richie usually owns every inch of that stage. But fans noticed something was off almost immediately. He paused. He sat down on one of the stage platforms. And then he did something he'd reportedly never done before in the entire history of performing that song. He sang it sitting down. He didn't try to hide what was happening either. Leaning into the mic, he told the crowd exactly what he was feeling. "What I've learned in my years in this business," he said, "is when you're feeling dizzy, sit your ass down." Then, almost unable to resist making light of a scary moment, he added that it was the first time in the history of that song he'd ever performed it sitting down. "That's a bad sign, he said. The crowd laughed along. Nobody in that arena had any idea just how serious things were about to get. What made the moment so unsettling was how fast the mood shifted. At first, fans laughed along with his trademark humor. But as the song continued and he stayed seated, people began looking at each other, realizing this wasn't part of the show. Phones came out. Whispers started. Seeing a man known for gliding across the stage suddenly needing to sit down felt completely out of character. Shortly after, Richie moved to the piano for a seated performance of 3 Times a Lady. Then he stepped away. Fans assumed it was a short break. They had no idea an ambulance had already been called. So if he was well enough to joke with the crowd, why did things escalate so quickly the moment he left the stage? Fans waited nearly 40 minutes after he left before getting any update. During that gap, Earth, Wind and Fire saxophonist Dino Soldo stepped out to tell the crowd Richie wasn't feeling well and couldn't continue. A show meant to run 90 minutes ended after just 55. Behind the scenes, paramedics met Richie backstage, and he was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital. The St. Paul Fire Department confirmed an adult man was transported from the arena that night by EMS, but released no further details. Sources close to Richie told TMZ the trip was purely precautionary. That word, precautionary, is one of the only solid details anyone offered in those first chaotic hours. Everything else was left hanging. And here's where this story could have spiraled into wild speculation, the kind the internet loves to fill silence with. So let's be clear on what was actually confirmed. Richie said he felt dizzy and strange. He was hospitalized overnight as a precaution. His tour was disrupted. What was never confirmed, by Richie, his team, or any hospital official, was an exact diagnosis. Still, the fallout was real. His team announced that 2 upcoming shows, in Chicago and Columbus, would be postponed on doctor's orders. Think about what that actually means logistically: refunding or rescheduling thousands of tickets, coordinating 2 arenas in 2 cities, pulling an entire touring production off the road on short notice. That's not a call a team makes over a minor stumble. That's a call made when a doctor insists on it. The official statement was brief. An apology for the inconvenience, a promise that rescheduled dates were coming. No diagnosis. No test results. Just gratitude and a promise of return. So the shows were cancelled, the singer was hospitalized, and the world was left waiting. But if this was serious enough to cancel 2 full concerts, why did a bandmate suddenly offer an explanation that Richie himself never confirmed? In the days that followed, one detail spread fast. Earth, Wind and Fire drummer John Paris told the Minnesota Star-Tribune that Richie showed no signs of illness before the show, and that he later said he felt a little dehydrated. On the surface, that sounds simple enough. Dehydration is common on tour, especially for performers in their 70s under hot stage lights night after night. It would explain the dizziness. It would explain the hospital visit. But here's the problem with treating that as the final word: it didn't come from Richie. It came from a bandmate, secondhand, relaying a private conversation. That's not nothing, but it's not confirmation either. And as of the most recent reporting, Richie has never gone on record to confirm dehydration, or anything else, as the actual cause. So why does that distinction matter so much? Because it's the difference between a rumor and a fact confirmed by the person it happened to. And for 10 full days, Lionel Richie said absolutely nothing publicly. That silence created the perfect vacuum for speculation, exhaustion after decades of touring, concerns tied to his age, questions about whether the demands of the stage were finally catching up with him. None of it confirmed. All of it guesswork. If dehydration really was the simple explanation all along, why did it take 10 days of total silence before Richie addressed his own fans directly? While he stayed quiet online, he didn't stay off the stage for long. Just 6 days after being rushed to the hospital, Richie returned to perform in Pittsburgh. For an artist who just had a public health scare in front of thousands, getting back on stage that fast sent its own message, even without a single word of explanation. From there, the tour picked back up in Detroit, business as usual on the surface. But he still hadn't addressed the moment directly, in his own words. Picture that Pittsburgh crowd, many of whom had almost certainly seen the viral clips from St. Paul before buying their tickets. There was no dramatic speech about recovery, no tearful thanks to his medical team. He simply performed, joked, and moved forward, letting his return do the talking instead of a statement. That tells you something about how he chose to handle this from the start. Rather than getting ahead of the story with details, he let his actions speak. It's a strategy plenty of stars use when they'd rather not turn a private health matter into its own headline. Whether that feels reassuring or frustrating probably depends on how much you think you're owed when it comes to a 77-year-old man's medical business. So after nearly 2 weeks of silence, what did he actually say when he finally spoke? On July 4th, exactly 10 days after his hospitalization, Richie posted for the first time since it happened. It was warm. It was grateful. And it was almost entirely about his fans, not his health. He thanked everyone for their messages and love, said he was doing well, and celebrated the shows in Pittsburgh and Detroit as pure joy. He told fans he'd see them next in Toronto. Read that closely, because what it leaves out matters just as much as what it includes. He confirmed his recovering. He confirmed his grateful. He confirmed his back on tour. What he never did, anywhere in that post, was name a diagnosis. No mention of dehydration. No mention of any condition. No use of the word fine, the way celebrities often use it to shut a story down completely. Instead, he offered gratitude and proof of life through his performances. So does a warm, grateful post that never once names an actual cause really count as finally addressing anything at all? Here's where we have to be honest, because that's what matters most. Based on everything reported, from TMZ, Fox News Digital, the Minnesota Star-Tribune, and Entertainment Now, there is no credible source confirming Richie revealed some hidden diagnosis. There's no confirmation he was ever concealing a serious illness he's now finally admitted to. What actually happened, based on verified reporting, looks like this. He felt dizzy and strange on stage. He was hospitalized overnight as a precaution. 2 shows were postponed on doctor's orders. A bandmate said Richie mentioned feeling dehydrated, though Richie has never confirmed that himself. 10 days later, he thanked fans and confirmed he was doing well, without naming any specific cause. That's the difference between a headline and the facts sitting underneath it. The dramatic version of this story writes itself, a beloved icon hiding a secret health battle behind a famous smile. But the version backed by actual reporting is more restrained, and in some ways, more reassuring. A scary moment, a precautionary hospital stay, and a return to the stage in under a week. Does that mean there's nothing more here? Not necessarily. He's 77, performing physically demanding shows night after night on a long tour. Whether dehydration was the full story, a contributing factor, or just the simplest thing to tell a worried bandmate in the moment, only Richie and his medical team truly know. It's worth asking why an artist in his position might keep the specifics private, even from fans who clearly care. At 77, still selling out arenas, still building a brand around joy, there's a real incentive to control the narrative around his own health. One detailed medical statement can follow a performer for the rest of their career. A short, grateful post that simply says he's doing well leaves him room to keep being exactly what his fans want him to be, the man behind All Night Long, not a cautionary tale about aging in the spotlight. That doesn't mean fans are wrong to want more. It just means that, for now, more information isn't something Richie has chosen to give. And until he does, every other explanation floating around online remains exactly that, an explanation, not a confirmed fact. So here's what we can say for certain. Lionel Richie scared his fans, spent a night in the hospital, paused his tour, and came back sooner than almost anyone expected, all without confirming the one detail everyone wanted most. Do you think he owes his fans a fuller explanation? Or is his privacy about his own health exactly the way it should stay?